Dear friends and guests gathered here from all over the world, hello and welcome. My name is Paris Moon. I'm an International Secretary General of the Women's Federation for World Peace. Since 2020, WFWPI started a new implementation called WFWPI Perspective webinar series. Today, our webinar title is The Role of Women in Conflict Resolution and Peacebuilding. WFWPI has invited well-known scholars and experts who have been continuously working to promote positive changes and share their work related to peace building. We will explore the challenges and victories of the movements in conflict zones across the world to understand the capacity and challenges involved for women and youth. This webinar, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Odette Costa. Dr. Costa is a Portuguese, born in France and raised in Canada. She is the founder and president of the women's organization Movimento Lilelo Azul in Portugal. She received several important awards and honors in Portugal and abroad for her roles as a volunteer in non-profit organizations and charities and in recognition for her fight against poverty and social exclusions. Let's welcome Dr. Costa.
Hello, thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. My name is Odette Costa. I am the moderator for today's webinar. Before beginning the webinar, there are a few announcements. Firstly, we have a translation from English to Korean, Japanese, Spanish, French, Russian, and Chinese and Thai. And if you have any question throughout the webinar, feel free to add it into our Q&A. We'll try to get through all your questions, but there are a lot of people in this webinar, so apologies in advance if we don't get to your question. You can always email us after the webinar as well. We are happy to welcome you to WFWP webinar on the role of women in conflict resolution and peace building, hosted by the Women's Federation for World Peace International. WFWP webinar series with the name WFWP Perspective has started from 2020 year. While each nation is currently facing challenging situations and difficult decisions due to COVID-19, WFWPI looks for hope to empower women and families and initiated various webinars to share the experiences and ideas to resolve those difficulties. Now we want to give our panelists an opportunity to share with us their thoughts on the theme, the role of women in conflict resolution and peace building webinar. We will explore the challenges and victories of movements in conflict zones across the world to understand the capacity and challenges involved for women and youth when they take an active role in leading efforts for reconciliation and conflict transformation. Panelists will present their best practices, successes in decision-making processes that have contributed to effectively tackling the enormous crisis in their diverse areas of responsibility. Please join me in welcoming our first guest speaker, Dr. Karamu Ringera. Dr. Ringera is the founder and president of the International Peace Initiatives. She has used her extensive academic backgrounds and international experience working in many countries to design and implement models of ethnical leadership, effective community engagement, women's grassroots empowerment programs, sustainable peace development, preemptive and post-conflict reconciliation, proactive health campaigns, and a successful working model of Amani homes, community homes of peace for orphans and vulnerable children. For her work to uplift orphans and women living with HIV/AIDS from marginalization to self-resilience, she was awarded the 2019 Global Impact Award by WellAware. In 2015, she was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by her alma mater, the University of Denver. The floor is yours. Dr. Ringara?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Odette. Thank you, the Women's Federation for World Peace International, for the honor of inviting me to share who has delved into peace building since I understood what peace is. My name is Dr. Karambu Ringera.
Excuse me, Dr. Ringara, please. We are having some technical
I am the founder and president of International Peace Initiatives, an organization that works to mitigate the impact of violence, conflict, and poverty in the lives of women. So can I speak then without the video? Is that okay with me?
Dr. Ringara?
Yes, I can hear you.
I am not seeing you on the screen. I will ask for technical support, please.
Dr. Ringela, please speak without the video on. So you
Yeah,
can
let me speak without the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just speak without the video. Okay, so I am the founder and president of International Peace Initiative. Peace is not merely the absence of war. It is when people have access to the resources that they need to meet their basic needs so that they can live lives of dignity and create thriving communities. At International Peace Initiatives, our motto is inspiring action. They have no peace. When women don't have money to take their kids to the hospital, they don't have peace. So my understanding of peace building is very broad. I am going to share my journey as a woman peace builder. When I read the title of our presentation today, the role of women in conflict resolution and peace building, my question was to myself, who are the women, the role of women, who are the women who are peace builders in the world? And I realized that I am that woman in the women who build peace in the world. And our approach has been building peace from within myself and from within the context within which I live. I did my doctoral research in South Sudan in 2005 and 2006, just after the peace accord was signed to bring peace in Sudan, in South Sudan, that had been at war for over 50 years. And when I went to South Sudan, I sat with the women and listened to their story. And I was like, who am I to take the experiences of these women just for an academic, document, if I wasn't going to do anything with that information, then I don't deserve to be called a peace builder. And it is then that I started delving into the way the systems have been created that I will say run the world, and started understanding there is a way of thinking, there is a way of doing things that even my education took me through. And some of these ways have been hindrances, and some of them have been path openers for peace to be achieved amongst people in different parts of the world. I had to make the decision and the choice as to what kind of peace builder I was going to be, an academic peace builder or a person who uses people's lived experiences to build peace within the context that the people are living. So really what I'm going to share with you is my journey as a woman here in Kenya, Africa, working to build peace, first within myself and then with the people in my community. When I graduated with my PhD in communication and culture, I took what I learned and came back to Kenya. And when I came back home, I felt that there was a message that Kenyans need to hear about who we say we are and how we've come to say who we are is who we are. And I realized that the systems within which we live have conditioned us in certain ways. Our education, our religion, our culture and traditions, our economics and things like that. And I really had to start reviewing whether who I say I am is really who I am, or it is who I am from the interpretation of what the systems have said of me or have created me to think that I am. And it is through that journey that I started also understanding how these systems have conditioned and programmed the members of my family and my community, indeed the whole nation. And I was like, so what kind of leaders are we going to be? And what kind of leaders do we have? And why do we operate the way we operate? I started asking questions about development, about aid, and all these things that we have done in Kenya for decades, and yet we say we are not developed. And we still don't have peace. So what is wrong with this picture? I started asking myself. So I started understanding that who I say I am is premised on the systemic marking through the programming that I have gone through. There's a social, cultural, economic programming that takes place through the institutions and the systems that I have passed through. And so I had to understand who those systems have said I am and who I have said I am through those systems, and then start creating my new story, the real story of who I say I am as a peace builder. In 2007, when I graduated, I went back to Kenya. In 2008, we had a general election. And that general election just went crazy because we started fighting amongst ourselves because the person who was said to have won the election was not the one that the other people wanted. And so we started killing each other. And it was a shock because Kenya for the longest time had been said to be one of the most peaceful nations in the world. And so, well, at least in Africa. And so I started working with, wow, what went wrong here? And I started observing how Kofi Annan, the then UN Secretary General, organized Kenyan leaders to lead the Peacebuilding initiative. And I'm telling you, except for one woman who was politically aligned, there were no women in the committee that was created to bring peace amongst the different tribes in Kenya. And I was like, in this conflict, when I went to the internally displaced people's camps, who I saw mostly was women, youth, and children. There were hardly any men, because of course they were in the field fighting. And my question was, where are the women? And so when I went back to my community, I organized a dialogue amongst our Meru people, and we talked about what was happening. And my goal was to have the people in my region not chase away people from other tribes from my region, but the conversations that we had were deep about the source of this conflict. But I was a woman who had organized this gathering, and you could have heard what the men were saying about the conflict as it was. My take and learning from that experience was, we have to work very hard to get women to the decision-making table for peace building for our nations. But how do we get them there? If only those who are aligned to politicians are the ones who will find their way there. So we started working with other NGOs, non-governmental organizations in my country, and we started organizing events to have discussions and dialogues amongst ourselves in terms of how do we bring more voices, how do we bring inclusivity in the peace building processes in our countries. The second example that I'm going to give is, and I'm going to come to, so what did we choose some of the things that we're going to do or actions that we're going to take to bring more voices in at the peace table. Then in 2010, we had a big community conflict, and the ugly things were happening within families and within different family groups in my community. And I decided to call a dialogue within the community, and brought in men, women, youth, and children to talk about this thing that was affecting the community, which was actually premised on violence that was happening within homes, but also within the communities. And so during that dialogue, and the things that people came up with in terms of addressing the problem that they were experiencing themselves, this is what I learned. If we are to be true peace builders at whatever level we are, whether we are academicians, whether we are NGOs, whether we are the government, whatever it is that we are, the first thing is to have a sense of listening, to not assume that we have the answers because we are learned or because we are faith-based leaders and stuff like that. Because when war happens, it's the people on the ground who suffer, mostly women and children. And those are the people that we need to listen to. And so in the case of the community dialogue that I created, I listened to everyone who had something to say. And after the youth and the women and the men listed the issues, we wrote them down somewhere, and we divided people into groups. And the youth, the women and the men went and sat in their groups to talk about the issues that affected them. And once they discussed them, they came and we said, sit down and think about solutions that you want to create yourselves to address these issues. And some of the issues were cross-cutting youth, women, and men. And at the end of the day, we came up with 3 main issues which touched the 10 or 20 other problems that had emerged. But we listened to each other. Each group presented their issue. Each group came up with their suggestions, and then the other groups added to those suggestions for peace building. So the learning here was listen to the people who have been affected by the conflict. Invite them to create their solutions. Because in mainstream work, experts come to work with us and to remind us or to tell us what the problem is. They will come and study us, and then they will go and create solutions and come and tell us, these are the solutions. Do you want to participate with us? And so listening and getting the solutions from the people, for me, was the most powerful thing that happened. And I'll tell you, since 2010, that problem has never occurred again. More fundamentally, when any other problem occurs, the people organize themselves for dialogue and they resolve the problems themselves. That is what I call regeneration. They don't come back to me to see, oh, Karambu, another problem has emerged. What they learned during that dialogue process gave them tools and skills to know they can speak amongst themselves and they can listen to each other. And they are the ones who are wearing the shoes and they know where the shoe is pinching them. And the solutions came from themselves. And so they had to take responsibility, be accountable, and own the process of peace building for their families and for their community. What that has helped me do in terms of my work then is to develop an approach that we have called a regen culture, a regenerative culture that is not based on an expert coming to tell us what to do, but that builds the resilience and the accountability and the responsibility and ownership of the people on the ground so that they can address their own issues. And no matter where we are, if we really want to see world peace, it will begin by building relationships when we listen to each other. When we listen to each other and when we put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. So for me, dialogue, creating regenerative approaches to building peace has been more powerful than an expert coming to tell me what's wrong with me and to try to create solutions for me when they don't live within my community. That is the most powerful tool that we have as humans and as women, because women raise families and they know the conversations and the dialogues that we have to do within our families in order to live in peace in our families. And using the nurturing, the feminine spirit of listening, of love, of compassion, we were able to reclaim that space in our community. And I'm not saying that the masculine is not needed in this too. It is also needed. And this inclusivity of bringing in the diverse voices of men, women, youth in the mix of decision making is what we are called to do. So peace building needs to begin from the bottom up and the top down and meet somewhere in the middle where the policymakers and the grassroots people can make a difference in our countries and in our families. Until the lion learns to write, the story always glorifies the hunter. Each one of us has a story. Let us give each other the space to be able to tell our stories. The power, that's where the power is. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ringera, for your inspiring speech. We will have the Q&A session after the presentation of all panelists. Please send all your questions to the Q&A chat box. The next speaker is Professor Hilda Maria Menezes Araújo Novo. Professor Novo is Vice President of CDS-PP Municipal Political Committee of Viana do Castelo. She served as a Member of Parliament of the CDS-PP Parliamentary Group elected in the 13th Legislature by the Constituent of Viana do Castelo, President of the CDS-PP Municipal Political Committee of Viana do Castelo. She worked as a working group of parliamentary committees of the dairy sector, young people's Portuguese forest and fires, and skill transfer in education. In 2019, as Vice President of the Parliamentary Friendship Group, Portugal-Korea was invited by the Korean Ambassador of the Republic of Korea in Portugal to join the Speaker of the National Assembly in ROK in 2019. The floor is yours.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to greet the Secretary General, Dr. Paris Moon, and our moderator, my dearest friend, Dr. Odette Costa, all the speakers, and a special salute to the representatives of the Women's Federation for World Peace International, as well as those who are here with us today at this webinar, whom I'm truly honored to address. I would also like to thank WFWPI for the invitation and the opportunity and privilege of sharing my views and testimony on this subject we are discussing today, conflict resolution and peace building. And being such a wide and important topic, I have decided to focus my speech on my experience as a teacher and as a politician, as well as in my commitment to spread the importance of knowledge, which, in my opinion, leads to the acceptance of difference and the hope for an everlasting peace. And as a teacher and as a politician, I've had the privilege of witnessing and becoming aware of some issues that I believe are not given importance enough, because either they are unknown or not often addressed in a simple and straightforward language. And you know, when you deal with students and their families, or when you meet common people, as I so often do, you become aware of how important it is to share knowledge based on facts and personal experience in simple words. And in countries where conflict resolution and peace building is not a common issue, I realize it has not been given the importance and relevance it deserves. Therefore, I always try to share my views based on what has touched, shocked, surprised, or moved me. However, learning and teaching by sharing experiences has been a goal of the utmost importance to enable me to convey the urge of people's greater awareness and conscience as a response to hopes and needs of others, whether far or close to us. Let me give you an example. I'm going to share with you what has come out from being honored to have visited the Republic of Korea, invited by its government as the Vice President of the Parliamentary Friendship Group, Portugal-Korea. I was there twice, a week in 2017 and a week in 2019. I have loved it all, from Seoul to Busan. And most of all, I've learned of the customs, achievements, and hopes of the Korean people and the pain of the division. And about the pain and the hope, both times I was in Paju at the militarized zone known as DMZ. And from the so much I saw and I heard during my first visit, I recall a short film I was shown at DMZ. The film was about what led to the present situation from 1950 on. I recorded it with my mobile phone to share it with my students because it was not a propaganda film. It was a pedagogical, very well directed movie about a people's suffering. Unfortunately, in the end, I was asked to erase it, which I did. I didn't know, but recording was not allowed. And later, when the Korean ambassador in Portugal asked me of my impressions of the visit, besides discussing in detail my experience, I stated that my only regret was not to have been allowed to bring that piece of film for my students to watch and learn from it. Because in Portugal, none of my students had ever heard of the Korean Peninsula or the DMZ before I told them about it. And they are not young children, they are teenagers and young adults. And, you know, whatever you tell students in a class, they take home to their families. They share with their friends and acquaintances, especially if it is something that has touched them and has made them feel sympathy and understanding towards it. And that's what I believe teachers and politicians are supposed to do, to spread the word, to help enhance what sometimes it is so far away that it does not sound real for us Portuguese or for us Europeans. And this is a cause. Tolerance, empathy, and hope come together with knowledge. I do believe that peace is a consequence of that knowledge, and of course, of tolerance and acceptance of difference. Another landmark in Paju, so close to the DMZ, was the Dorasan station, where I could read a sentence written below a picture hanging there on a wall, which moved me. It said, not the last station from the south, but the first station toward the north. And let me show you the picture and the words on it. Let me try to do it quickly. Here it is. And you see, this is something, I believe, it is a sheer example of hope. Not the last station from the south, but the first station towards the north. And then I would like to tell you, for those who might not have heard of it, Dorasan Station is the northernmost international station located about 700 meters from the southern boundary line of DMZ. It is not only a symbolic place of the vision, but also has, with the completion of Gyeongui railroad line connection thereafter, I would say, also has another historical meaning, as it should become a gateway of interchange between the south and the north. And there I was able to read President Bush's speech when he visited it in 2002. And I'd like you to allow me to read some of his so much up-to-date words, which I have so often shared with my students. It goes like this. We gather today surrounded by reminders of the challenges to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. I was shown a road for peace. The road has the potential to bring the peoples on both sides of this divided land together. And for the good of all the Korean people, traveling south on that road, the people of the north would see a miracle, a peaceful development, creativity, and spiritual freedom. They would find friends and partners in the rebuilding of their country. I see a peninsula that is one day united in commerce and in cooperation. Korean grandparents free to spend their final years with those they love. We all hope the stability of this peninsula will be built on the reconciliation of its two halves. I hope that one day this hope will be realized. And these were some of his remarkable words of hope that can be read at the Dorotsen station. And let me finish this example of mine by showing you the plate left there in 2002. Let me try to share it with you. And it was left as a memory of the visit, and it translates so well the feeling I try to convey to my students and my fellow citizens every time I have the opportunity to talk about conflict resolution and peace building, the feeling of hope for peace in the words that can be read on it. May this railroad unite Korean families. And for me, as a very touching plate and words, it's like a prayer, you know. And I think this is an example that everybody should have in mind or bear in mind when thinking about peace. Because living conditions, culture, customs, prejudice, illiteracy, and intolerance all have been obstacles to the change of mentalities that lead to conflicts of all kinds. And throughout my public, professional, and private life, I've had the opportunity of expressing my belief that a life of peace and harmony in our families and places of work is to be cherished and to be spread as much as I, as a mother, a wife, a politician, a teacher, as a woman, and as all men and women may be able to, wherever we may go or may be, in whatever place on earth. In a recent previous speech I've given, I said we have all been through an unprecedented time in the history of our lives, in whatever country we are living in. We have experienced changes, fears never felt before that have inevitably led to that realization that nothing at all can be taken for granted in this earthly life of ours. And you know, I'm talking about the pandemic. However, in this time of pandemic, despite the uncertainty and suffering it has brought, I believe it has also been a time to recall that tolerance, understanding, solidarity, spiritual values, and principles are never to be forgotten. And women and men should always be the face of them all. I strongly believe that education is the foundation for the change of mentalities and attitudes in what concerns conflict resolutions and peace building. I do believe it is mainly within the families, at school, and through well-informed, sensible, and sensitive parents and teachers that understanding and tolerance, the acceptance of difference is learned. Because eventually, they all lead to conflict resolution and peace building. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, much more could be said, but I'm not supposed to go on talking beyond my time, the time I was given to address you. So let me finish by saying this. I truly believe that education is the foundation for conflict resolution and peace building. Thank you. I was truly honored to have been here today.
Thank you very much. It was very, very inspiring. Thank you very much, Professor Nov. Our third speaker is Dr. Bernadia Iruwati Chandradawi. I'm sorry, it's a very difficult name, but I'll do my very best. Dr. Bernadia is the first woman Secretary General of United Cities and Local Governments Regional Section. She received her PhD in Urban Engineering from the University of Tokyo and 2 master's degree in atmospheric physics from Nagoya University, Japan, in public policy from the National University of Singapore. She has been working in urban development and related fields for more than 15 years. At the beginning of her career, she worked with JICA, and afterward, she was with CityNet in Yokohama. She is also a visiting professor at several universities in Japan. She was recently appointed as a member of the advisory group on gender issues of Unhabitat. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Costa. Very good evening, very good afternoon, very good morning. Sawadika, konbanwa, and of course, annyeonghaseyo. It's really a great pleasure for me to join this very interesting dialogue. So, but please allow me to greet Secretary General of WFWPI, Dr. Paris Moon, and all distinguished panelists, and of course, dear participants. I really like to compliment the good works that every woman here in this discussion has made. I think I also join with a million number of women in this world that we want peace. We really want to have a peaceful life in this entire earth. So again, I really like to congratulate and don't just give up because I know that it's not easy way to reach peace, but I'm sure we are making a good progress. So I will be sharing with you the works that we do, how this local to local diplomacy creates and also build peace and deal with the conflict resolutions. So I'll be sharing a slide with you. I think this is also good to show that we can all make difference in whatever capacity we have. So let me show this one. I hope you can see now. Wait a second. So here, before I'll share with you the role of women in conflict resolution and peace building. Let me introduce the organization that I've been working since a couple of years ago. So this is a network or association of cities and local governments in the world. Is the largest one. We connect cities and local governments in more than 140 countries. And used to be the quite old in history. The name was EULA, but these three organizations, EULA, Metropolis, and UTO, merged in 2004 and created the largest association of cities and local governments. So our mission is to be united voice of local governments. We know that local governments play a critical role, play an important role in the local development and the sustainable development. When we talk about sustainable development goals, almost 65% of the goals must be implemented at the local level. So this is why we focus on this local governance processes and as well as local governance important role in the development. So why local governments or city works together with other cities, they have several reasons. Of course, they want to find solutions. We have seen so many good works that cities have been making in different parts of the world. And we see that as a good example, and we can do it. Other cities can do it as well, or other local governments can do it as well. So we also want to enhance our strategies, enhancing these win-win solutions with the current issues, and of course, learn each other and be a global player in this world. And make multilateral contacts, and of course with United Nations. We got recognition from United Nations because United Nations is a member states organization. So even though we are local governments, they are still considered us as one of the major groups in the United Nations. So we want to gain access as well as information. So I will be sharing with you when I took the positions of the Secretary General in 2013. We have so many members. We also have many members from South Korea. So I've been visiting South Korea quite often. But I also have to visit a country which I have never been before, which is North Korea, because we have a member from North Korea as well. So even though North and South Korea have no relationship because of this situation, but this local to local diplomacy works. So I had a chance to visit Korea 2 times, North Korea 2 times. It was 1 year after I took up the positions. And of course, media said, many things about North Korea, but this is my responsibility. I have to meet my members. So this is why I visited North Korea and met our members there. And of course, many people may advise me that, okay, you should not go because of this close country. But I decided to go, and what surprising me, it was not what the media has shown or has put in the propaganda. The country, I met nice people. I also see a beautiful scenery, and then the people also willing to cooperate, and also they really show a good side of North Korea, which maybe not many people had the chance to visit. So I had another second chance to visit together with the president of UCLG ASPAC at that time. It was a mayor of Surabaya. It's a lady mayor. And now she's a Minister of Social Affairs of Indonesia. So we have visited there, and then we followed up those visits by listening actually what the people in North Korea wants, what the members in North Korea want. So they expressed, some of the challenges they face. They want to learn from many other cities and many other local governments on solid waste management, sanitation, and of course, many other sectors that they are interested. So we followed up that visit by also inviting members from North Korea. In this case, it's a Korean City Federation to visit Surabaya. We show how Surabaya managed to transform the city from, unclean city into better city with more public spaces and more green areas. And so we managed to see and to show these things because there is a local to local diplomacy. We also arranged a meeting with South Korea, because I know that this peace in Korean Peninsula is what all of us want, and this is also what UCLG ASPAC really wants to see. So in this visit, we also provided them a chance to have dialogues also with non-South Korean members. And we are having a Congress in UCLG in Daejeon, UCLG Congress in Daejeon, and we are aiming that we could also bring representatives of North Korea to South Korea. Hopefully this could be also possible. But the bottom line I like to highlight here, local to local diplomacy is possible even when the countries have no relationship. So I think this is what I see as a beauty of having this collaboration at the local level. So we also come up with the UCLG prize, Peace Prize, providing the prize for successful initiatives and also generating international public attentions on the role local governments play. So UCLG Peace Prize contributes to SDG 16 by generating international public attention for the role of local governments. But let me also share with you, I think we all here want peace. We feel empathy. We feel also important of having respects to others with a different culture, especially in the Asia Pacific region where we have so much cultural differences. The important is respects, and also how can we also promote tolerance. So I have actually in my life, this is also why that keep me moving, doing things as a peace builder, as well as a woman who really want to see, welfare of the society in the Asia Pacific region with the strong leaderships, with strong local leaders, mayors, governors, and others. So one is I really want to see zero inequalities. This is part of my zero vision. And second is, of course, zero poverty. Education is the key in order to alleviate us from poverty. And then the zero vision, I have a zero crimes, violence, disasters, and accidents. During this COVID-19 pandemic, women and children are already vulnerable groups. But with this COVID-19, the challenge that they face are much huge. The number of domestic violence has increased, the number of suicide in Japan also has increased, and many of them are women. And of course, they are attacked sometime in the public spaces. Women are attacked in public spaces. So we want to see zero crime, violence, and disasters and accidents. We want a safe environment for our children as well, for privileged people free from conflict and disasters. And the fourth zero I like to emphasize here is zero greenhouse gas emissions. Every human being has a right for breathing a clean air, drink a clean water, and also live in a very good environment. This is every right of human being. And the fifth one, which is also very much related to peace, which is zero intolerance and zero discrimination. Even with the different faiths and beliefs, we must show respects because if we have respects to others, and in the end, we are all equal human beings. If we show respects to others, I'm sure that peace can be achieved by everyone. So let me just conclude here by women play diplomacy works in conflict resolutions. At UCAG ASPAC, we have several numbers of women leaders, women mayors, and we also increase the capacity for them to be able to manage better. We also have kind of programs on mainstreaming gender equality in the local development plans. So role of women in local government is really critical, more insightful is needed. And we cannot achieve sustainable development without having peace, and no peace without sustainable development, and sustainable development cannot be achieved without peace. So local to local cooperation has a big potential that this peace can be built through these local to local dialogues, local to local cooperations between local governments to local governments, city governments to city governments. So capacity buildings for women in all means are necessary. So let me conclude by saying that we all have responsibility in our life, and we all can be a peace builder, whatever your capacity has, because you should not wait peace to start from ourselves, from our family, and then to our neighborhood, and to also big society, and we all can make a difference. So thank you very much. I really look forward to questions and answer sessions. Back to Dr. Costa.
Thank you. It was very interesting, Dr. Bernardia, very interesting indeed. We will have the Q&A session after the panelist presentation. Please send all your questions to the Q&A chat box. Our last panelist speaker is Dr. Lucia Huzenikova. Dr. Huzenikova is a lecturer at the Department of Security Studies of the Faculty of Political Science and International Relations at the Matej University in Banska Bystrica, Slovakia. She is also a research fellow and a member of the board of the Central European Institute of Asian Studies in Bratislava. She is teaching courses primarily within the MA study program in international relations and in security studies, focused on international relation theories, regional security in selected regions, and the strategic culture of the most powerful states. She focuses on the specifics of North Korea and as well as the relations of North Korea to relevant regional actors and the effect on the regional security environment. She is a member of the Central and Eastern European Center for Asian Studies, Budapest, Hungary, and Korea, Europe. Next Generation Policy Expert Network, London, UK. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Costa. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Secretary General Paris Moon, for inviting me to speak at this wonderful webinar. I have to say that it's very enlightening to be among women panelists, because it's rarely happened to me that there are just women on the panel. So that's already a great experience for me. Also, I have to say that I'm truly honored, and after what we have just heard, it's very difficult to sort of continue, because my approach and my studies are a little bit different to what we just heard, because they were very personal stories. For me, I'm trained, as you could have here, in international relations, and especially I'm focusing on Korean Peninsula. Being from Slovakia, it's not so many people who are dealing with Korean Peninsula, and that's probably one of the things which always interested me in not knowing so much, I would say, when I started my research quite a few years ago. And I'm slowly and step by step uncovering all the layers of the conflict or the situation in Korean Peninsula. And my interest in Korean affairs and studying North Korea always has been from the perspective of trying to understand. But being trained in international relations, it was more trying to understand why and how the state behaves and what the policy of North Korea is. And I have to say that North Korea, not an open country, is not easy to do the research. It's still a lot of men, scholars, who are dealing more with Korea and North Korea. And now, just recently, I'm also learning on the different levels of relations. So focusing firstly on politics, now I'm learning about different opportunities and different levels of contact between South and North Korean people, and especially women also involved. Because in general, and now I will turn a little bit to the theory and move a little bit from Korea. When we talk in international relations about conflict, we mainly look at states. The very traditional approach would be sort of superficial. So looking at war and peace between states. However, as Dr. Vingera has mentioned, conflict and conflict resolution cannot be a top-down approach. It has to be from bottom up. And this is sort of, I would say, a problem in a discipline. And I would be a little bit critical about international relations in general, because it is sort of a superficial. And just recently, we are going through, let's say, I would say, a paradigm shift in international relations. That there is more and more scholars who do realize that the top-down approach is sort of not working, and is not giving us answers to what we want to know, and is not giving us answers to understanding or better understanding. And therefore, I would a little bit return to one of our speakers, and when we were talking about education, Professor Novo. Education is really important for peace resolution and conflict resolution in general. But I would also add, it is very important what and how we educate the people, because this is also one thing, and it's also sort of just, let's say, acknowledging what I have said, that doing research in international relations for almost 20 years now, really only recently I have started to uncover the different layers and different levels in it. And also only recently I have become aware of how important women were for the discipline, for international relations, and also for security studies. There was last year, at the end of last year, a wonderful book published, Women's Thought in History of International Relations. And that uncovers and is going all the way back to influential women scholars in international relations who already in the beginning of 20th century were looking at peace, at war, at disarmament, and all the issues which we are always dealing in international relations. And we didn't teach about it. We still not so many people do teach about these important women. It was also last year I learned that the first women receiving Nobel Peace Prize was already in 1905, which only sort of confirms what I said, that we really need to rethink the way how we teach. And the education needs to be much more inclusive and much more and encouraging our students to go a little bit more into depth of knowing and understanding. To also a little bit move along, this is an approach which we kind of have in international relations. That's the feminist perspective in international relations, which kind of is doing exactly what Dr. Ringera was saying, that you need to go to the communities and you need to go and try to understand the communities. The problem in general, which we still have in international relations theories, is that we tend to look at it from above. We tend to look at it also from our Western experience, which is different to the rest of the world. And in this way, for me, the pandemic has actually meant a start of new journey in my research, because this is something which I'm really interested in, to sort of change my perspective and change my approach and look at societies and identities within the societies. And in a way, it sort of closes the cycle of my aim to understand what is happening in North Korea, but it's also broadening it in this way. So therefore, I'm truly honored to be at this panel. I have learned a lot. I have made a lot of notes about what my fellow panelists have been saying, and I believe that there is a need for us women to be more active, to share our different experience, coming from different fields, coming from different backgrounds, because there we learn and we move our understanding and our perceptions and our realities, and our life is also changing. I think I will stop here. I'm open to any questions. Again, thank you very much for inviting me. And yeah, I'm looking forward for future cooperation with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was a wonderful speech. Thank you, ladies, for your inspiring messages and important contributions in conflict reconciliation and building peace and harmony all over the world. We will now go on to the Q&A session. And we would like to thank all the participants for sending your questions, and we will pick several questions for the panelists. I will begin with Dr. Ringera. And I have a question for her, please. From your experience in Sudan and Kenya, what do women need in order to come up and express themselves? Please, Dr. Ringera.
What women need to understand their role in peace building is, first of all, to understand the systems within which they live. And number two, to understand how those systems have created women within conflict as victims, but they are still called victims of conflict. And a victim is someone who is helpless and hopeless, who needs a savior. Mainstream everything is about a savior coming to help some hopeless person. And this, this depowers, what is it called, to take away the power of a person from them. So for me, the work was, first of all, for the women to understand the systems, to understand that they are not victims, and to figure out things that they have done that are things that have shown their power, and to step into that power and reclaim that power within themselves so that they can bring it then to their communities and work together. Because in South Sudan, for example, workshops, I was doing my research within workshops that were bringing women from different clans and tribes whose members had killed the members of the other people, who had killed their husbands, their sons, and so on and so forth. And to really get them to understand why they're giving up their sons and their husbands to kill each other was to understand the systems and why that country had been at war. And for them to choose whether that's the route they want to take, or they want to be like the Liberian women who organized and were able to get a president out of a seat because they organized and they used what they know as mothers to actually manage to attract international attention, be able to do that. So it was just to recognize their power, to recognize they have the solutions, and to actually trust and believe in themselves. And that was amazing to watch when the women understood that, how they took the baton and ran with it. I've also answered that question in writing in the Q&A, so someone can go and read it there.
Thank you very much. Our next question, please, will be for Professor Novo. Based on your newfound understanding of the Korean painful history, what do you think Portugal can contribute to help bring freedom to the suffering people of North Korea? Please, Professor Novo.
Well, there's something I have not talked about, which is the role of the media, the role the media can play in bringing awareness to the issue of unification. And in spite of the dangers of media manipulation and fake news, because we all know behind the curtains there are people pulling the puppet strings, as unfortunately media are, to make people do or think things they otherwise would not. You know that, for example, different newspapers with different political opinions and views may present events related to parties in different ways, being more favorable or to those they identify with, or harsher with ones they dislike. So I think that through reliable social media and traditional ones, but also through official channels, the Portuguese people can help by spreading their real knowledge of the suffering people of North Korea. And here in Portugal, the embassy of the Republic of Korea has had a very important role in the involvement, for example, of the members of the Parliamentary Friendship Group, Portugal-Korea, spreading accurate information. And that's what I think it's the basis of having a real commitment in this issue.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I would like to ask the next question, Dr. Bernardia. How is the participation of Western cities in the UCLG? Please, Dr. Bernardia.
Western cities, could you repeat?
How is the participation of Western cities in the UCLG?
Western cities.
Yes.
Okay. So we are global networks. The headquarters is in Barcelona, and we have a lot of members from Europe. We have European cities, local governments, and associations. We also have members from North America. As I cover Asia Pacific, this is the biggest, actually the largest regional section of UCLG that covers China, South Korea, North Korea, and then Australia, New Zealand, and then the other side include Pacific Islands like Kiribati, Fiji, and others. So we have a good interaction with the Western cities, Western local governments, and actually the picture I show you a couple minutes ago during the visit of us to North Korea, that also had a delegation from Europe, from France, and we managed to enter North Korea because we have a connection with them. And I saw also a question, if I can answer that question, also related to ideology. I really wish that the reunification and between North Korea and South Korea is happening during our lifetime. This is also, I think, everybody's hope and everybody's dream of it. And humanity is above all ideologies. We know that leaders change, and it just I feel pity to them, especially to North Korea, because they want to have interaction with the world. And they couldn't join they couldn't join us through Zoom, whatever, Google, because they are not allowed to access this. So we have to have a different kind of communication modes with them. So, but fundamental of everything is humanity. And then a culture, respect to our culture, respect also to different kind of culture background, mutual background. So let's just hope and pray that this reunification and peace building in Korean Peninsula is possible and is happening during our lifetime. But my advice, I think it's important that North and South Korea talk among themselves first. I think I also see a great effort made by South Korean with the Ministry of Reunification, and also the effort made by President Moon for having talked to North Korea. Because the first visit I had to North Korea and the second visit I had to North Korea was a different. I saw the difference in the DMZ area. People didn't carry guns, and also the effort made by South Korea of showing that North Korean people are kind people. If you follow this Korean drama, I don't watch Korean drama very often, but I watch one of them, which is Crash Landing on You, in the story of love affairs, love between North and South Korean human being. I think that's a very smart of showing that we all want to have peace in both sides, North and South Korea. So I think that's a brilliant idea how through entertainment, South Korean change the perceptions on the North Korean side. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Due to the time limitation, I would like to ask the last question, and it is addressed to Dr. Uzanikova. In your opinion, which steps can be taken for a new approach and trust building for the two Koreas? Please.
Thank you. Well, basically, what we know from the inter-Korean relations is that obviously a lot has been tried over last almost 30 years, especially since the end of the 1990s or the beginning of 1990s. And what I personally found sort of the most working in it is relations on multiple levels, starting from people to people is necessary, definitely, but also going all the way up to the politicians. I believe we have kind of seen that there might be some steps in a wished direction taken if top politicians are meeting. So that's very important. So to have multi-level approach. At the same time, as Professor Novo has said, the way how we inform about North Korea, that's very important, because of course there are people living and trying to live as normal life as possible. So that's very important. And the other one, which is more from international relations perspective, is that you need to have all the actors involved, because obviously, and it's more from North Korean perspective, to have just bilateral relations with South Korea is not working for them. They need to have US and China involved. And that's, of course, complicating things, but that's also what is in their interest when we look from the political perspective and survival perspective of the current regime. So it's a very complex issues, and I still don't have a lot of answers to the questions which I'm asking, but I believe that's part of the research and the journey of being a researcher and teacher.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. Thank you so very much. I would like to close the Q&A session, and our apologies if we didn't get to your question. You can always email us after the webinar. Thank you so very much, distinguished panelists and participants. This concludes the WFWP webinar on the role of women in conflict resolution and peace building. Thank you very much.